those questions of has the situation materially improved or been diminished in terms of all of the major stakeholders? Has the United States position been improved? Has Iran's position been improved? Has Israel's position been improved? Has the region's position been improved? Has the world economy been improved? Are we in a better place or worse place? Other than Iran, it is hard to see a clear winner here. And Joe, we could talk about the Israeli piece of this, but you might argue from Benjamin Netanyahu's limited point of view up to a point that Israel was a clear winner in this conflict. But it's not clear to me that that's true going forward now, both because of the fact that the policies Netanyahu has pursued have damaged Israel in profound ways around the world. But now, as the split between Israel and the United States gets more pronounced, it may end up coming back to haunt him in terms of the thing that he cares about most, which are his domestic politics. A split with the United States is one thing that Benjamin Netanyahu may not be able to afford when it comes to trying to get reelected again this fall.
No question there. Trump has soured on Netanyahu, at least for the time being. John Hyman, thank you so much. Let's bring in MS Now contributor Inzamam Rashid, who joins us live from Birkenstock, where those talks are being held. We just heard from the vice president a few minutes ago. Inzamam, good to see you. What more are we learning from the American team on the ground, the other mediators, the Qataris, the Pakistani group is there? How are they feeling about where things stand right now?
Well, look, Jonathan, it's been 24 hours of negotiations, of diplomacy, but also plenty of twists and turns as well. Right now, the situation is that J.D. Vance, the vice president, is still here with the U.S. delegation. The senior delegation of the Pakistanis, including the prime minister and some other ministers, have now left the Birkenstock resort. So, too, have the senior Iranian delegation, which includes the foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, and the parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Ghalibaf. Now, this has happened after a good few hours of negotiating between the US and Iran, the Qataris and the Pakistanis in the room as well. And yes, we've gone through some of what Vice President J.D. Vance had said just recently, speaking to reporters here in Birkenstock. But also we've heard from the Iranians as well, and we've also heard from the Qataris and the Pakistanis. So all sides have effectively put out their comments today, but you can really get a sense that their priorities are pretty different. The Iranians want to specifically talk about the fighting inside of Lebanon. They want to talk about the releasing of their frozen assets. Let me just tell you what the Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had said today. He said that tireless Pakistani and Qatari mediation has delivered major progress to end Lebanon war. Oil and petrochem exports are waived, blockade lifted, some frozen assets released, according to the Iranian Foreign Ministry, and major reconstruction and development plan launched for Iran. First real test, he says, is Lebanon deconfliction cell. Now, my sense is that they made a lot of progress around process over those hours of negotiation, looking forward as to how they will negotiate for the next 56 days now, I think it is. They will create little kind of working groups that will settle down and get into the nitty-gritty details of all the technical details of the memorandum of understanding. So they'll be working in little groups, which I think is important because it gives a sense that the teams are working together to try and do this. Just finally, a source who was inside the negotiating room was telling me that, look, whilst it may have been pretty constructive, the talks, it was very tense, and that's because of a couple of situations yesterday, namely the president tweeting or sending social messages and also speaking to Fox News, renewing his threats directly to Iran. And imagine this photo, getting the Iranians on one side, Vice President J.D. Vance on one side, and the president threatens Iran, saying that you may not even make it back home whilst those negotiators are in the room.
Probably not a helpful contribution there. MS Now contributor Inzamam Rashid live from Switzerland. Thank you so much. And Joe, I think Inzamam's right. The progress, if there is some here, is that the idea of they're talking to keep talking, that some agreement was made. Here's some of the structures here. Here are some things we can deal with going forward. And that's not nothing, but it's also not a lot. And there's an extraordinary amount of ground that still needs to be covered.
Well, and why don't we just look at these negotiations and where they're starting? If you determine what's being negotiated and the order of what's being negotiated, then you're controlling the negotiations. And so what are they talking about? The Iranians are coming in. The president said we need to talk about nukes. We need to talk about nuclear weapons. We need to talk about enrichment and ending it. But the Iranians come in and say, no, 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 we're not talking about anything until we talk about Hezbollah and Lebanon. We're not talking about anything until we talk about unfreezing assets. And then we're going to talk about war reparations that the United States is going to organize and guarantee of $300 billion. And then we're going to talk about the lifting of sanctions. And then we're going to talk about the Strait. I mean, they're talking about everything except the one thing the president has said he wants to talk about, which is the ending of Iran's nuclear program. That's just not going to happen.